Hopefully the year one folks, things are going well with their soil moisture monitoring systems. I know Steve and his team have been working to send out some reports to people who had done this in the first year. And this year, we're really hoping, once we get these in, we're going to really work with you all to understand what those things are and to help producers interpret the info coming out of them really well. But anyway, I'm talking too much here. Without further ado, take it away, Steve.
All right, John, I'm going to go ahead and grab the screen if that's all right. Yeah, I just have a handful of, figure this out, a handful of slides. Oop, that ain't it. Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm Steve Blecker with, I'm up at Colorado State University in Fort Collins, and I want to talk about just kind of a broad overview of the soil moisture system we're going to use this year. It just so happens to be the same one as last year. And it's important to note that this is not actually the training. This is just kind of an overview just to introduce this system for those of you that aren't familiar with it and just kind of talk about how this is going to work in terms of installation. On this slide, I have a bunch of pictures from last year's installations, and this is one where we have some cattle panel protecting that little white box is the data logger. It has a solar panel on the top with rechargeable batteries. So pretty much once you get this thing installed, you can hopefully just walk away from it and it'll just run smoothly for, the next 3 years or so. Of course, there's always problems, but that keeps us busy. Anyhow, so what are we installing? This is a system made by the Meter Group. They're in Pullman, Washington. Used to be Decagon, for what it's worth. Pretty straightforward system. There's the data logger that I mentioned, and there's two probes. One of them's pictured there on the left or the right. So these two metal prongs sticking out. The two-pronged ones just measure soil moisture, and then we have a three-prong one that does moisture and temperature. So everybody will get for their producer fields, we'll get one of these systems, logger and two probes. And then to access the data, there is an annual subscription, and this is all covered as part of you or your producers aren't paying for any of this. This is funded through the grant. Let's see. So where are we installing the system? Well, it's going to be hopefully in the field that's enrolled in the program. And these are just some examples from last year. We're trying to get them. The idea is to get these in the ground and be able to leave them for the duration of the program. So to do that, we try to get these as close to the edge of the field as possible, but stay out of the way of farm equipment, of traffic, so they don't, the tractors aren't going to run into these things or get in the grower's way. And there's different ways to do this. I don't necessarily recommend the telephone pole approach, but I mean, you can be creative with this, or whoever's doing your installations. You might have to put them in the field, in which case they'll have to come back out. You'll have to work with the producers to kind of keep an eye on when they're going to need to get in there and do tillage work or when that might be interfering. So there might be instances, especially in potato fields, I would envision where you kind of put them in after planting and then you're going to have to come back and pull them out before harvest and then just kind of hold on to them and do the same operation next year. But hopefully for most situations, we can leave them in year round. And like I mentioned, where there's livestock, we have a recommended exclosure that takes up a really small area just to protect the systems. So we will be providing most of the equipment, or well, we'll be providing the sensors, but there are things that whoever's doing the installations, and I'll talk about who that's going to be in a minute, but you'll need some way to get the T-post in the ground. That's a T-post driver. You'll need a shovel so you can dig a trench to lay the cable in, but we try to provide like the zip ties, and that's a roll of conduit that helps protect the cable between the logger and where it goes into the ground. And then that's just a hunk of hog panel or cattle panel we use in situations where we need to protect from the livestock. So what this looks like then is this is from last year, a sample installation. This is in a irrigated pasture. And last year, if you remember, I ordered everybody 20-meter cables, which was way too much, and people had to wrestle with all kinds of leftover cable and either bury it in the ground or loop it around the pole. It was a mess. So this year we're gonna, as part of the that soil moisture questionnaire, we're going to ask you, I mean, and you might not know the answer, and that's fine. What length of cable you need. I think the default's going to be 10 meters, so it'll be half as much as last year, which will be much more manageable. And again, that's to get us from the edge of the field kind of into where the action's happening, where the crop is growing. And sometimes we might not be able to make that for whatever reason. And, we'll just, all these, every situation is different. Every field has its own unique challenges, some more so than others. We just, we'll figure it out. We'll get these in the ground so we can provide some moisture data for the producers. So you dig a trench, you lay the cable, you get to the end there, and you push those probes into the undisturbed wall, fill it back up, plug it into the logger, and you're good to go. I mean, it's a pretty simple, straightforward system. It's not much involved with the programming. I mean, we can take care of that on our end through the computer. I mean, it's not much. I said there's not much to it, but maybe if you haven't done it before, there is. But so who's going to be putting these in? Let's see. So well, hopefully we got this whole crew of CDA soil health specialists coming on board, and we're going to get them trained up. We have a crew of that picture. Ian was supposed to be here today talking about this, but he's on an extended spring break, so I snuck a picture of him. But he's kind of our crew leader up here at CSU. He's put in a whole bunch of these systems last year. He's our soil moisture system expert. So we'll be able to rely on him. CDA specialists will train up the technical assistance providers and also anyone in the conservation district staff. Just, I mean, everybody's situation is going to be different. You might be able to do it in-house. You might need help from CDA, from CSU, from the TAPs. Well, so what we want to do then is we're working on putting some dates together mid to late April, and we'll have at least one on the east side, probably, we're guessing Rocky Ford at this moment, just because there's a big cluster of sites down there. And then we'll have two in-person trainings on the west side, and these will be hands-on. We'll have the systems. Ian will talk us through how everything works. We'll be able to go out into the field and actually put one of these in the ground at each of these trainings. So you'll be able to see how it works, ask lots of questions. And then not everybody's going to be able to make these. That's fine. But we'll be able to, once other folks get trained up, we can send out Ian or other folks to kind of individual districts if we need to. And just because we're not just going to hand you these things and say, here, put them in the ground. We're going to make sure you understand what's going on. Okay, and I just wanted to say a quick word about the data itself. The access is really easy. There's a phone app and a website. This is a screen grab this is a rangeland site, and this is from last year, from like June to the end of the year. So yeah, we'll set it. Measurements are basically taken every hour and they get uploaded to the cloud. And then you'll be able to go on here and access it and see what the soil moisture is doing throughout the growing season. And the other thing, just to back up a sec, last year we put them both in at roughly 6 inches. That was our kind of general guideline. But this year we're going to put one in at 6 inches and one at 12, just to capture a wider depth range in the soil. However, there are instances where if the tillage operation is going to be 6 inches, if it's going to be deeper, if it could impact that 6 inches, then we might just go a little bit deeper, say maybe 10 inches or something. Because ideally, we just want to leave these in the ground for the whole duration of the program, if possible. So that might not be possible. I mean, I don't know how deep you go to harvest potatoes, but it's probably deeper than 6 or 10 inches. I'm just guessing. I don't know. But anyway, again, every situation tends to be unique, but ideally we'll put one in at 6, one at 12. And so I just wanted to point out, this is the reports we put together last year, because I mean, when you get the data, it'll give you percent water content. It'll be, oh, okay, I'm at 25%, I'm at 35, I'm at this, I'm at that. But I mean, what does that really mean? I mean, what ideally we want to know how much water is available to the plants. And this is going to change, this is going to vary a lot depending on the texture. So if you have 20% water content in a very sandy soil is a lot different than a 20% water content in a very heavy clay soil. So what we're able to do is from that soils data, we can take the texture results and the organic matter, and we can come up with these custom graphs, if you will, where green is kind of the sweet spot. That's the plant available water. The yellow is kind of above saturation. So that's the water like after an irrigation or a rainfall, it'll spike and then it'll start draining off. And then when you get into the red, this is kind of where if you're familiar with the term wilting point, this is where it becomes harder and harder for the plants to access the water. And again, these ranges will shift. They'll change depending on the amount of organic matter and the texture in your soil. And you'll be able to pull this up, like I said, on the phone app or the website. And as this growing season progresses, and growers can check it as often as or as little as they want. And data wise, it'll be accessible. We appreciate everyone's, we confidentiality about this. We're not going to share all this data far and wide, but we do use it internally at CSU. We have some grad students who are working on modeling who really appreciate just the sheer number of sites we have monitored across the state. So you and your growers will have access, CDA, technical assistance providers, but yeah, no one will be able to zoom in and say, pinpoint where a specific monitoring system is located. And yeah, so that's just kind of a general overview. We'll be setting up more in-depth trainings. Oh, I forgot to mention that. So things that we can't provide, I mean, we can't really send you cattle panel or T-post. It's not very practical, but whoever ends up purchasing those, we will be able to reimburse you for the materials that we don't directly aren't able to supply. And yeah,
Steve, we
that's
got
what
a
I've got.
question.
Yeah,
So one of them is, and we can also mention our intake form will be helping us understand this, but will these require self-service?
that's a great question. Yes and no. If you want to be able to access it via the phone app or the website, you do need cell service. We did have a handful of sites. A lot of those were in Eagle County that don't have cell service. I mean, the logger still works. Everything's fine. You have to go out and manually upload, download, whatever it's called, the data. So yeah, there are definitely spots in the state where there is not good cell service. It doesn't necessarily have to be as good as like to make a phone call, but you need something. So that's one of I don't know if it's a downfall, but no, that's a great question though.
And we'll have that in the form that Miller mentioned that we're going to send out for the producers. We're asking what the self-service is or isn't so that we kind of understand what those requirements are. And if they don't have service, we'll show folks how that all needs to work and we can help them with that as well. So just wanted to throw that tidbit out there.
Yeah, thank you. That's good.
Also, I correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't have to be any specific provider. It just has to be some
It,
type of service.
yeah, although it is helpful whether it's if happen to know if it's AT&T or Verizon, because they make
Okay.
two different I'll just call them chips that we can swap out inside of the controller. Can we install? Yeah, you're more than welcome to put in as many probes as you want. I mean, what we're going to send you, I mentioned, but there are 6 ports in these data loggers, so you can plug in 6 different things, 6 different sensors, if you will. I mean, you can plug in a weather station. They're all just stereo plugs. So yeah, if you want to purchase more or have other ones, yeah, by all means.
And if that is the case, we do have the specs and all that in case you guys do want more, we can work with y'all on making sure we have the right product that matches the system and help you get that done and work together on that.
What is that question?
Will the cost of extra materials, posts, hog panels, etc., just go on reimbursement forms?
I, I don't, I guess we haven't worked that out, but I mean, you could,
We
I don't know,
could
John.
we can figure that out. We'll I think that many of these will be done by our staff.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, and so there are definitely conservation districts that want to do this. So, and that have the ability and want to learn or have already done it before and worked with us. So, so
The short answer is yes.
yeah,
We'll be able to reimburse it. We're just
the
not
short
sure
answer
how.
is yes. It's just probably not on a reimbursement form. We'll figure out a process for you
Yeah, but
to get
yeah,
reimbursed. We'll have that before we start, before we send you a training on how to install them. How's that sound? All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Steve.
hey, you bet.
Will these be removed after the 3 years? This is a good question. I think that we would like to see them go on as long as the farmer would like to have them out there, but maybe you have a different answer, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, because we haven't really reached that in any of our programs yet. The thing that the subscription,
Mm.
that's about $150, $200 a year. I mean, they're designed to last a good 5, 10 plus years. I mean, you might have to change the batteries once in a while. So it might be on a case by case basis. I don't know that we'll be able to cover, the subscription costs and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I'm not sure what we're going to do with these at the end of the program.
And I mean, Steve, you could have those out there without the subscription and still get the data. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, you just have to go out there and you could take a tablet or a laptop and just plug it in and download the data.
Yeah. So we
Maybe
could have
even,
some
I think you could
options. We'll
download it
think
right through
through
your
that for
iPhone.
you guys.
Yeah, before we get to the end of the first round, which 3 years will, boy, amazingly enough, be the end of next year. We'll have some guidance on what happens there. I'm sure they can still keep them, Neva. They just might end up paying their own subscription fee for them. But we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't promise them anything, but most likely, yes, they will be able to keep them in the ground if they want.
Good questions. All right, any more questions? Great.
I have one.
Oh, go ahead, Regan.
So if a producer wants an additional sensor to monitor a second field that's not enrolled, would that, I know, and it wouldn't be covered, but would that be an additional subscription
If
Yeah, the
they
subscriptions are per logger.
per logger?
so if they ran if they were to put the device, the logger, between two fields and run probes out one side into the program enrolled field, they could potentially run probes out the other side into the other field, and it would still be the same amount for their subscription. But if they
Correct.
want to put an additional soil moisture monitoring system on another field, um, and it has its own logger, so it's far enough away from the original field that you need two loggers, and they'd need that additional amount. We will, though. I can't say that. If they run extra probes for their program enrolled field, we will. They can count that as reimbursable expense. But if they run them to a different field, we probably can't.
Okay.
Hopefully that makes sense.
Yep. Perfect sense. Thanks.
All right. Okay, very quickly, I'm just going to go one more time here. We have that specialty, that high technology webinar. Let me find it real quick.
John, can I interrupt real
Oh,
quick?
yep, go
Nita
for it.
had a question. Yeah, the loggers, I want to say they're about $800, give or take. Sensors, maybe, it depends which one, but ballpark is 200, subscription about 150 to 200 a year. Just to give you an idea.
Cool. All right. And I'm sure we could get those loggers in, all be in the same part of the app, right? If they got an additional logger, I would assume so. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, one more reminder here of our upcoming webinars. They're going to be good. We have that one coming up here for the high-tech equipment on March 25th. Again, March 25th at 11 a.m. We have that one coming up on April 8th with the specialty soil testing. Those will be awesome. There is no meeting on April 1st. So we'll have that one canceled. We have our soil health specialists, our regional people starting that day. So it's going to be a big day for us, and we're going to cancel that one on April 1st. Otherwise, March 25th, April 8th, we hope to see you all then. Please reach out with your questions to the cda_soil@state.co.us email address, or reach out and call us too. At this point, you probably all have heard from us some way or another, so you know how to get a hold of us. And anyway, good job with those enrollments last week. Way to go, team. And we'll see you all at the next meeting. Thank you.